Thank you for joining me. I'm Karenann MacDonald. It is Frequency Fridays, and we are excited to have you here today. This is monumental. There's been so many changes. I think people are going in, seeing, and part of this talk today is a little bit about getting into the present, getting into the gift of what we have, getting us into who we are, and basically getting to securing a network around you. People that are like minded. This is like birds of a feather flock together. This is also all about the law of attraction. We have seen so many things, and people have been sending me some really interesting information. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's going on here? Like a lot of people don't realize that there is just so much going on that is literally chatter, noise, and, it's like monkey mind stuff. This circus is going on. It didn't matter, like, it seriously does not matter what area of the world you're living in right now. There are people that, we're hearing what's going on in the Middle East. We are hearing about people taking over and invading, with their special forces and stuff like that. Let's remember, most of us know that this has nothing to do with countries. It has nothing to do with borders, and it actually has nothing to do with the bloody resources. It has to do with usually technology and stuff that's been here for thousands and thousands of years that these people are fighting over, right? Technology that would make people sovereign, that would give them, natural healing, natural laws, the ability to have time to develop our gifts. And now what we're seeing instead is the crumbling of those systems. And it's going to be in everyone's face pretty soon. I don't know if you've seen the list, but if you've seen those lists, what's going on, we are looking at that within probably mid-April here. So within a couple different weeks, that you basically may be starting to experience that crunch of energy, because maybe you're not in Cuba right now, where they've been without power in large parts. Being a former neonatal nurse, I know that, people and babies and clients and patients that were on ventilators were dependent on that. And a lot of times those backup generators only go for so many days. And now we're seeing, again, the demise, of these different people. So you may be in a different area. Are you in New Zealand? Are you in Australia? Do you know that they're shortening? And in Asia, they are shortening the work weeks. You're not going to have, they're making a 3 to 4 day work week because they're trying to save on the different fuels, on the different oils, all those sort of things, the energy. And again, we have no lack of resources. I mean, anyone that knows anything up here from coast to coast on this America's empire, we have no lack of forest. We have no lack of oceans. We have no lack of sands. We have no lack of prairies, right? And again, we should be moving towards some of the free energy stuff that we see in Tartaria, where you can actually go through the ether and actually have your lights going on, your power. You wouldn't happen to have electricity bills. My gosh, that's such a thing of like, since the last reset. In here, we need to look at how do we get sustainable and how do we keep, our head, we shouldn't be just treading here and bobbing. We should be actually having a great time. And a lot of this stuff too, people, I think 3-4 times I've heard it this week, how do you sleep at night? Actually, do you sleep at night? And actually, I do sleep at night. I have smart meter covers. I have scramblers and all sorts of stuff in here. But as a rule, I don't need as much sleep. But in here, what we're finding is that this is taking its toll on people. And this is, we're not going into, we're in Zulu time. We're actually ending probably World War III if people really knew what was going on in the background. And it doesn't matter where you are. Even in this, I had the opportunity to go into one of the cities this week. And I was just flabbergasted. I mean, the amount of homeless I was seeing, the amount of drug trafficking that was very obvious all over, right? And then the people totally oblivious to it. I could even go like one block and I was getting panhandled. It was ridiculous. But in here, that's searching for, do you have food? Do you have water? Where do we have springs? Where do you have artesian springs? I just, one of the guys I just talked to actually this week informed me that, in the area, there was another artesian spring I didn't know about. Kept very quiet. And that's great because we now know where there's another thing. And I don't need to have them on findaspring.org, and I love spending time with David Avocado Wolf and getting to know the different people that set up findaspring.org that you could go find your springs. But, of course, they're registering it, but I'd prefer to have them unregistered. But again, knowing where you're going to have clean water is going to be absolutely paramount here coming up pretty soon. So if you don't know about that, I would really hope that you guys, have, some conception of where to get that stuff. So I'm going to put some of these links that I think are really, really important into the chat room. So one of the first ones we're going to put for you is findaspring.org, because seriously, that's important. If you don't have food you can dehydrate, food you can do a lot of things with, but you've got to have that, particular substance, right? I mean, water is life. Really, it is. And so take a look at that, because the maps will be in there for you. Like I said, you can ground things out, you can dehydrate things, you can go to a tree, you can go to cedarwood trees, you can pull off milk, bark, whatever. And actually, that's more than sustainable for stuff. I mean, that's plant-based food. There's no lack of berries up here and all sorts of stuff. We could live quite comfortably. So I wanted to, kind of bring that in there, because we want to be able to raise our vibration. The other thing, I had so much fun. I went and got a whole bunch of essential oils, right? Gobs of essential oils. And I think that is absolutely paramount. And Everclear's in here. How you doing? It's the, the gathering of the souls today. And I think this is really really important, because, I'm finding people do not know the basics to health. And I have been yelling at people going, you have to have litmus paper. You have to have this. You've got to get this. So one of the things in here is findaspring.org. I'm going to put this in. I'm actually going to screen share. I'm in the mood today. So anyway, and just pardon me, I'm in the middle of moving, right? So this is kind of hi, by the way. And I was talking to someone to 1 minute to 5 here. So Find a Spring is just amazing. So I really want you to, just in case something does happen, is know where these, particular maps are. And so I love it. That's one of my favorite things. I've been basically a water forager, right? Gastronaut, a cosmonaut, all that stuff, right? And we really need to get in touch with that. So if you have the opportunity is to go to findaspring.org, then that's where you should be looking. And so, we got Dallas. Yeah, my Dallas buddy. It's so great. If you guys aren't in here, you guys will catch up later. So anyway, but one of the things in here, let's take a look at where we can find that. That findaspring.org is just absolutely amazing. So take a look at this. Hopefully you can see my screen sharing here. Findaspring.org. Why am I using spring water versus anything else? Artesian springs are totally chemically different. It's a living water. It vibrates. It actually levitates up the mountain. You guys think water comes down? Springs actually levitate up backwards. And I really think that's amazing. So, if you need to have a whole discernment, I suggest people Google David Avocado Wolf, and he'll teach you all about the water. I would never go up with glass. That would be just a pain in the butt. But I will go get, the BPA free blue jugs and stuff like that. It's just easy to carry. So this is just amazing. I've been to so many springs, the Petrofka Springs that we had north of Saskatoon, and we've got out here Nelson, I've got Canmore, I've got out by Nakusp. I love that. And so this is kind of the fun stuff in here. And of course, there's a view of the map. So it's all nice to know all about, why this is a sacred healing site. But, wherever you are, just hit onto the map, Google in. And again, it doesn't have to be registered, better to be unregistered. But if you're stuck and you don't know where the water is, zoom into your area here. So like I said, no lack of springs, because sometimes, they're shutting down these waterways. They're contaminated the watersheds. And of course, how many people have been hearing about all the damage? If I hear about another thing about another Golden Dome, the AI data centers, and they are destroying the entire water tributaries, guys. It's absolutely, the waters are turning brown and black. They're totally unusable. And they're tapping into this because they need literally millions of gallons are used to cool down that they need to use for these energy centers. It's absolutely insane. So, and people always seem to focus on below the border here, but let's go up on top of the border. There are just as many areas up in here. They're just not listed. So, I used to love going. This was my favorite little site here, just north of Saskatoon at the Petrofka area. And there's a little secret here, I'll just tell you. So there's a little thing just outside of Bland Lake, and it's called Crydor. And the Crydor, the door came from Theodore. That was my Gita, that was my grandfather on my mother's side, my matriarchal. So this is where actually that came. So the thing is from Chrisix, and the other was from the Theodore from the Lusix and Busicavagus. So anyway, this was my favorite little spot to go there, you know. And again, they started, scaring people, saying, "Oh, you need to do boiling of water." We don't boil water. Never. Put it through a filter. There are so many different ways to filter. You can use Lukoski remedy plates. I restructure with that. MMS, hydrogen peroxide, a little lemon essential oil, and away you go. I mean, there are so many things to do. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you guys know on how to find a spring.org, because I think it's important, and it's a living water, and it helps, literally give us a boost. I think it's amazing. So anyway, if you have any questions, or, you want to talk about a subject today, I'm totally open to that. We can go for anything that you would like to. One of the things I've noticed in here recently, and this is something that's concerning me, because when I start getting 2-3 clients a week, and I'm going, what's going on here? Why are you getting respiked? Why am I seeing this graphene? Why do we get you feeling great for a day or two, and then you come back and I see you a couple weeks later and you're just about dead again? And here's a simple thing. Okay? Do not have people going around and touching you, okay, that are contaminated with the stuff that went in the arm, up the nose, all those type of things. They're contaminated. They're deployed. They've got chips. They are there to activate, to do an actual remote link, like a computer chip, just like a GPS chipping. They are tracking chips. So if you've got that, you're not going to apply extra electrical magnetics. It's just common sense. I wouldn't put a screwdriver into the light socket either. But some people do not seem to think about it's okay to go to reflexologists, hairdressers, touch a cashier with these people that are transmitting stuff. This is worse than having an STD. At least an STD I can do things with. This, we really can't. And, I was really happy because, I was up, 12:12. I thought it was it's a sign. Sabrina Wallace called. Okay, Karen, let's talk. I went, it's 12:12. And I realized it's 3 in the morning where she was. But anyway, we know how important this is. And I cannot reiterate enough that basically the idea of taking all the different ingredients, this is not one thing of graphene and one thing of lipid nanoparticle and everything else and a little venom and, everything with an ionute in it. What you're talking about in here is stuff that's got hundreds and hundreds of complex ingredients, okay? And the idea of throwing a herb or throwing tobacco on my computer that has a Norton's antivirus or some Trojan horse that got in there is not going to work. And I think people need to quit putting their heads in the sand and quit being in damn denial. Okay? If you were supposed to be 6 feet away last time, you should be 12 this time. Okay? And I can feel the intensity when I'm around people now, because the more the EMFs come off, the more satellites get, fired up here, the more the Artemis goes around to the dark side of the moon. That'll be a whole interesting thing. I can't wait to see what they got planned for Sunday here, guys. And everything up to April the 12th. This will be wild. But anyway, so we're sitting here and we are getting, combobulated and discombobulated with all these artificial frequencies. Okay. And they act like microwaves. That's why we call it Teslaphoresis, right? They use a little remote control, right? They just use a little thing here and go, hello. And then they can activate you. And they can activate you from the satellites. They can activate you from the towers. My gosh, if you don't know that 678G is actually going and we actually have got gamma radiation, then give your head a, shake here, and I enjoy talking. I saw Stefan Burns' information this week. I saw Michael Bradbury's. I got to chat with them back and forth in there. We're passing information around within the inner circles, right? Which is Mr. MB333 for you guys. Stephen Walker at basically, JW TV. Diamond at Oppenheimer Ranch there. We've got, Ben at Suspicious Observers. We've got Brian Gunderson here, in the Kelowna area, right? With his geomagnetic Earth Watch, right? All these people, sky watchers, were trying to tell you stuff is going down, right? So I really want people that, there's nothing wrong with being protected here. Like I said, you're seeing so many areas without grid. They are testing these areas. And I know even in our area, I've had 2 reports this week all of a sudden. Oh, there's 6 black SUVs here, and there's transport, army trucks going, this way. So there's lots of things going in the background you just need to be aware of. Can I do anything about it? Of course not, but I like to be informed. And, kind of like, it's not like anyone's going to tell you. The generals don't even know what the hell's going on here. I mean, these decisions are, from much higher up on and off the planet and below the planet, right? So like anyone's going to know up here, right? It's not like the street lamp. You can't read your mind, as we know. Mark Steele will tell us, what the deployment is in the street lights, the millimeter waves, like all sorts of stuff, right? I've been on a couch where a street lamp went in and the beam weapon came through and hit my girlfriend in the head and basically gave her a burn, like a 1st-degree burn. Not just being these things for targeted individuals and all sorts of stuff, there's a lot of people that have come out. And recently I put a really cool thing up here. I was listening to Sean Atwood. I've been listening to Sean Ryan's stuff too. I mean, amazing podcasts are coming out. But there was Holly was on Basglio, and I just connected to these people on Facebook as well, and Twitter and stuff, other places, LinkedIn, those sort of things professionally. But when you start looking at it, she started talking about, and she's not the first one that's told it to my, not on a show, but I've had people tell me to my face that basically they grew up or they have spent time in the Nelson as they go British Columbia Q552 base, right? And I happened to be visiting that way the other day. And I was like, oh, as I'm out there and, just drop in and see what's in the area, right? These are Tartarian mud flood cities. There is known bases. I have met so many friends of mine that are in the forces, outside the forces, vets and stuff like that have discussed being in here. And if you haven't seen my, Karen Truth data group, whatever, I've got several pages. You might be on my Karenann MacDonald. You might be on my K.A. Lusick, but I've got an inner group that has grown over 7,000 in the last 2 months. Something's going, something's doing it, especially when like Facebook is giving me the algorithm to add people. That's like even more mind blowing, just word of mouth. But we're talking about different things that are in this areas. And Holly started talking about all her childhood memories and being taken for MK Ultra training, right? And again, you could be from one city to another city in no time flat, the way they have their little, supersonic, maglev trains and stuff underground. And I know with what's going on, this is absolutely insane. But she talked about being raised and the tortures that they had and actually meeting Mengelas. And I know there's Mengele family still here to this day. There are remnants of a lot of this stuff. And they talked about, the different NAZA. I didn't do that right. NAZI, right? Of these different, regimes are in here. So it was like really kind of wild. But it's been a really interesting week that way, just to hear, people coming in. And, other friends are telling me too, all of a sudden they've got this white powder substance is showing all up, on their cars and in 3 little villages out here. And people are going, oh, it's just the Russian, volcano going. I said, that's right. Came from Russia across the ocean, all the way across like the land. And it just landed in these 3 villages. Like, give your head a shake. So anyway, then it's showing up. We got white kind of alkaline, this powder showing up on like rocks. And then next thing you know, I'm getting pictures of like, the creeks and like this abnormal foamy weird stuff that's coming up that smells chemically. And then a week later, there's these weird wiggling 1 inch, 2 inch, 3, 4, 5 inch, almost like Morgellon fibers, like robotic, nanotech hybridized worms, gosh knows what they've been hybridized with, kind of like, the mosquitoes and the ticks that are genetically altered. So you got to keep your head on top of this stuff, right? And I said, you know what? We should get some more microscopes here, right? And just seeing what we have. But anyway, so this is like kind of weird stuff. And I was like, you know what? You just got to chill out. So, I mean, I also went out. I was on like a little hot spring tour, right? You got to detach from this stuff and you can't take it too personally, right? We see what's going around to people that we know, to our loved ones, but that's not my story. That's not the frequency I want to be at. That's not the vision that I have. And it's certainly not the vision for the future. And it's not the vision for this planet, for the waters, the land, for the animals, and especially for our children. This is not what I planned as a mother to ever see happening. So if this is like the cleaning of whatever from one epoch to another, from the, yuga this to the yuga that, it doesn't matter. We need to be able to be flexible and to be changing. And it's okay to be informed, but it's okay to like let it go for a few days, and I know all of us, most of us want to know what's going on. If I did not know what was being dumped over my head, I wouldn't be able to take a sample or reverse engineer it or scan with the new Genius biofeedback that we've got at Insight Health Apps. I was in several meetings, medical conferences this week too, and have a few more to, come up. But, meeting with people like Ryan Williams, like, the top kind of, this is like not public software. It was developed by, 40 Russian scientists, and a whole slew of teams and physicists and stuff like that. And some of the military software contractors, right? I don't work with public technology. I want to work with the stuff that's like, class. I don't need to carry around clunky, machines like I had in the hospital before. That's just like ridiculous. Now we can put things on like a phone and just scan you. So I thought that was kind of fun. So if anyone's interested in that, by the way, I've got a couple of different ones you might want to try because they're just coming out. One of the ones I can tell you about that I got really bloody excited about, it's called Biofeedback Voice Scan. I think, yeah, pretty simple. Biofeedback Voice Scan will be the new one coming out. And I think it's got to be like, I played with it a little bit because I got to beta test some of this stuff. But this is something, if you feel like goofing around, you certainly can. I did. So I wanted to see what was going on. And in here, so the biofeedback voice scan is something that you can go in and just, there's a bit of a freebie site of it in here. Oh, yeah, there it is. It is launched. I'm like, okay, let's see if it's up. Okay, so anyway, there's, it's a biofeedback voice scan. And if you want, you can get a hold of me. You don't have to have AI, but it actually, for them, they're saying it's not really AI. It's actually their analysis intelligence report or artifact intel. So anyway, it's just their way of saying we can make a report for you. It's a color little picture with your aura scan. It's cute. Anyway, the biofeed. So anyway, if it's something that you want to do, let me know. Because I just looked at some of this. I thought this is really cool. So anyway, you just put your information in and you take a picture and you put a voice thing in for 15 seconds to go AEIOU, about 10 times. And then you record it, do it, upload it, and then the information comes in. So if it's something that you want to do, I just love doing biofeedback. It's one of the quickest, easiest things to assess someone's state of health. And more importantly, is to put the frequencies in like a Rife code, but we're not hooking you up with, rods or anything else. We're using basically pure sound. So it's a frequency sound generator. And similar to Rife, but we can do it with headphones, and we can use magnetics if we need to, and we can use lights and all sorts of cool things. So that's something that just came out here, and I've been doing this way before 2013. Let me tell you, like I graduated like 2004. I graduated my nursing back in I started nursing in 1984 for crap's sakes. Like that's 40 years ago. So anyway, if it's something that, you guys want to take a look at, have a boo there. And the other thing I just got able to share with people, which I just love too. It's called a Quanta capsule. And I just love this Quanta capsule too. So they came up with a Quanta capsule. And basically, I get your email. I send you a little app. It's so cute. And basically, I send you an email. And then same thing, you record your voice and picture. Of course, it doesn't go anywhere. And I don't have to upload it to the cloud and all sorts of stuff. But anyway, you basically upload your information. You send it to me. I'd be your therapist. And you just put your clanmother13@gmail.com, my KLIM mother13@gmail.com. And then what you do is I do a mini session for you. Well, actually, I do a full session for you. But anyway, and I send it to your phone, to your email and to your phone. And there you import these healing frequencies. And it is so, so cool. Right. So there's a couple of videos here. Actually, I'm going to put that in the chat room because my clients are just loving that. My friends are just loving that. And I put it on my Facebook group because I said, hey, guys, I can offer you guys this stuff for free if you want. I love finding out what my minerals are, or my vitamins, or how much, happy lithium and happy serotonin and dopamine I have. Like, even are your hormones, is your libido, in check, right? You may not be, active, but you need to have like active, like, topped up hormones. All of us need that. We need to have our spines aligned and stuff like that. So those are some really cool things. And so I thought, geez, I got to be able to show you guys this, because I was like, about it. And if I'm excited, most people should be excited. But anyway, this goes back to the Genius Insight app, and this is actually the quantum capsule, so I can send that in here. There's a tutorial. It's not rocket science. So basically, you get your phone, download the app, you put your picture like I showed you, and then it ships it to me. I do your session, and boom, you have it for a week, 24/7. My gosh, most therapists are charging $100 to $200 just for these, right? So bang, there's between $700 to $1,400 worth of free therapy time, and you can even put it on at night, and it works while you're sleeping. So you can have these gentle sounds just quietly in the home. And then you can just hook up with your headphones, or put your headphones around a glass of water. I mean, this is some really cool, you might want to try out. So most people, like I said, I was listening to a show today. It was an offshoot of Sean Atwood's group here. And I was listening to Ron talking to Eileen McKessick. And again, they got the tuning forks, and I love forks. I have no lack of forks in this house. And they're not just for eating, but I'm talking about tuning forks and biofields. I've got weighted, the plain ones, the 528. I've got the whole gamut for all of that. But, if I need a tapeworm, or if I need something to hit a certain chemical or whatever it might be, or open up a meridian, the tuning forks are not going to just do it. I'm sorry. They have a limited use. Your plain forks are out here in the air, but even the weighted ones are just on there. And that brings me into why I want to use stuff like this, because twice this week, and I just had one last night again, and I am knocking my head against the thing, and I interview people, I take intakes, and people forget stuff, right? And it turns out one was going to, excuse me, a massage therapist, but also going to an acupuncturist and having them stick needles into you. I'm like, have you lost the plot here? Like, you're putting in needles, a metal, not only coming 6 feet in, but these people were graphinated, right? Like heavy juiced up, and they come into the biofield. Not only that, but they're sucking the energy off. And I thought, how am I going to explain it? Like, don't know I'm knocking my head against there. And I said, do you know what a vampire is? And they said, yes. Do you know what a psychic vampire is? Yes. I said, well, your energy is that blood. And how they have to do is they have to get in to be able to soul harvest you, or what we call loosh harvesting. But it's the same idea. Psychic hook, energetics, etheric implants. Everyone's got a word for that. They've got bad vibes, mojo. It's like, bad medicine. It's like a black whatever. But in here, we have to be able to maintain our field. And I said, not only were you going to someone, they were laying hands on you and touching you and breathing on you in contact, but you're allowing them to put a metal needle into your system. And you wonder why you can't get out of bed, and your memory is going, and your legs hurt, and you seem to be clotting. And again, I had another individual too, that all of a sudden their left side is, going up, like, well, it must be cholesterol. Well, let's talk about spiking first. And let's talk about pH, and cholesterol mimics the colon, right? I mean, these are simple chemistry. Because most people are not getting this very basic circle. I want to show you this, how I want people to do something real simple. Let's look at this.
Once you've installed the Insight Quantum Cap app from either the App Store or Google Play Store, click on the icon to open it up. If it's the first time you're using the app, you will need to create a user account or profile.
In here. Don't I do great? I actually touched something, it goes off there. But anyway, we just want you to basically do something really simple, right? Like, get these things going. So who's in the room? Oh, how are you doing today? So anyway, we're just getting these things out that, that people can take a look at themselves, see what's going on, and start making a difference for you. And even there, like I do my children from a distance, right? I could do my friend's dog or the cat. I've done 2 dogs, That was the other thing. A lot of people have been feeling really discombobulated. Like, I've actually had clients tell me that they've been crawling on the floor. They're too dizzy. Their parents that were, whatever, juiced up, they're dizzy, headaches, a lot of facial and head burning this week too. And a couple, animals as well. I've been doing dogs and cats. And unfortunately, one of the dogs passed away, in here. No problems, running around perfect, has kind of like a radiation EMF thing, and then these chemicals down, they're down, we get them back, and then boom, it's like having a seizure or something. So, like I said, I want you guys to have this kind of stuff, like this arsenal, like in your hands, in there. So I cannot emphasize enough is to get, stuff, let's say like clean baking soda, going in here, getting the pH and learning this stuff. I'm going back to basics because, I went with a friend. They stopped in at the naturopath's office. I got to meet some of the staff in there and the clinicians, right? Introduce myself as I usually do. And I'm sitting there and I'm going like, what the hell is going on? Again, you're seeing even the naturopaths. It's $250 to see them. And that's another 100 and some for a test, or $400 for a test. I have, I don't do that anymore. Oh, and Diane's in and Lena's in, and we're having just fun, and just like put any subject you want. Give me something that made you happy this week, and give me something that pissed you off that we need to talk about this week. But, I went into taking a look at the naturopath, and here we go. I'm going to go back to basics, like, going back to kindergarten again. People need to get litmus paper. Right now, with the amount of like negative energy and radiation causes hyperacidity in the system. Any stress will do it. Looking at CNN will do it. Whatever it will do, CBC. In here, I want you to know that we need to get alkaline. You need to know that baking soda works. There are food charts, there are water charts, and how do we test for this? Okay, you want to get Bob's or some clean source of baking soda. It's the number one thing you should have in here. And how do we measure it? We're going to get the litmus paper, or we're going to get strips. You can become a stripper a couple times a week, but we're going to get, no, I'm just joking. We're going to get some strips, and we want the 4.5 to roughly 9. Okay, that's the range that we want to look at. Okay, I don't care if you get strips. I don't care if you get rolls. I think it was on sale for like $11 because I was with someone that got it the other day. There's also another one that's even a little bit more in depth than this, but I'm serious. Like, right now think it once or twice a week, or maybe it's a Tuesday, Thursday, or maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and take the weekend off, right? Enjoy your time. Don't get too caught into it. But I want that to be up here. And what we want is roughly about 7.5 to 8. Okay. Not after you take it and they go, well, I'm all over the place. I just take this, half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of baking soda, and all of a sudden I've gone from like basically 6 up to 7.5. I want, of course, I don't care what it is after. I want to know what you are first thing in the morning. And 5 or 6 or 7 doesn't cut it. So that means with most people, you can do that. But I'm going to give you a secret here. Okay. A lot of people are having renal and kidney and electric light involvement. And if you're getting edema or on certain meds, you can't use the baking soda. That's a no-no. So you're going to have to get some food-based one. And I'm not going to get too much into it, but here's my favorite place that I'm not going to say, but I'm going to show it to you. This is a place you have to contact, and you tell them that you saw this show, and you tell them that you know about me, because they can help you, and they can actually ship anywhere in the world. And all they want to do, they've got a great amount of stuff here. And this is in what you call just north of Kamloops in here. As you guys think in the, it's in the Carrier and Lillooet area, but as you guys think British Columbia. So in northern BC, they make this. This is local alfalfa, and we've got olive leaf, and we've got all sorts of greens and barley greens that make you alkaline. But more importantly, they put it together with a whole bunch of minerals. And guess what? When I open up that peel, it's called It's Easy, or it's like a pH happy cap. If you want to have this is really close to, very similar to me, to when people have been on Empower Plus through True Hope, right? If you've got any kind of, mental, emotional, or instability, or you're feeling a little angst these days, this is the kind of stuff you go first for is you get alkaline, right? So take a look at this. This is a great thing, Suede Hills Organic Farms. And you have to talk, you have to film, because I'm telling you, it is not online and it's not allowed online. So I'm giving you some stuff. This is the inner tips that you're not going to get from anyone else. And once you start going here, it's all about raising the vibration, is raising the pH. So, as we kind of went back and we took a look at this, right? Let's just look at that. Did you realize that the pH levels are almost here? If you did the 1 to 14, did you realize that's basically your chakra colors? Have you ever thought about changing your perspective here? Okay. That's why they make those weird little flags for, people that are confused with, their dysphorias and genders and all sorts of things. And they don't know what the colors mean. They also have something in legalese and law that they mean things. Okay. And they're not what people always think. They're inverted, perverted, and actually they'll take things out to make sure that they bank on people's ignorance here. Okay. But this is definitely a must. You can also get on Amazon when you're doing stuff. Let's say if I want to go measure my water, you can actually get a pH water tester. Okay. And this will also test, again, they're not that expensive, but you can get them. They also can do sometimes urine as well. So in here, this is something if I want to know the ORP, the oxygen reduction potential, if I want to know the total dissolvable solids, I want to know the pH of stuff, everything in here. And spring water, by the way, is one of the most cleanest bacteria-free that you can possibly get when you're right at the beginning, right at the creation, at the source of it. So this is something, this is a must. And even for water, whether it's like a Brita thing or pH, the filters, basically the pitchers or whatever you want to get, you may need to have something mobile, right? So even like some of the things like the sativa or something like that, or a wand, things like this, ionizations, lemon essential oil, all those things, also water purification drops, which were otherwise known as this, right? So when you're looking at the minerals, that type of thing, which is for water, right? You know what I'm talking about right here. Okay. That will take out a lot of things. And again, available even on Amazon. This is amazing. Must have right now for the prep kit. The other thing too is having basically, when you're looking at something, let's say, just for cleaning, right? And you want to look at something at a perfect level, not the ones you go into the dollar store for 3%, but let's look at some of these ones in here, right here. Okay, super oxygenating. And again, you can get little bottles of it. They're really cute. But these are something that, again, got to have on hand. Okay, it's for growing food. It's for, cleaning things. It's for all sorts of stuff. Must have. So these are, make sure you have these on hand. Now, the other thing most people don't know, and I always say, get some lemon essential oil that is therapeutic. Okay, so when you want to get into this, this is something that will start neutralizing. Most people don't know this, but it will actually start neutralizing out things like chlorine and stuff like that. You probably didn't know that, but one of my basics, it goes in my salad dressings, it goes in my water, it goes in my master cleanser, it goes in my lemonade, always, always. So if you've got something like that, make sure you're looking at these really important properties. So while I'm on my, essential oil kick here, there is something, if you're up on this neck of the woods here, and take a look at this particular place. Absolutely amazing. Amazing essential oils. And I'm telling you, you're going to knock your socks off. When I show you actually what the actual things are, if I go in to say, well, I want to look at some like oils, or I want to see what they are, just knock yourself off here. Let's go say I want to get some anises or some peppermint or whatever they are. I want you to see what the prices are. And these are therapeutic edible, you guys. There's star anise, same thing as you thought about, spiking and transmission. Look at these things. Artemisia, people. What's Artemisia? Wormwood. Okay. You can also put these in here. Okay. There's some really cool stuff. There's mugwort, motherwort, birch oil, all these incredible things, right? And you can get them in different sizes. The other thing, if you're down on the other neck of the woods below that border or Amazon too, you can use this one down here. Also, it goes to Canada and the States on here. Another one, right? Outside of Young Living in doTERRA. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Again, you've got lots of choices. I want you to have choices. I want you to be stocked up, right? These are for massage. I put them in my food. I put them in my water. All my different meals have it. Danvia's in here. Peppermint. There's some really gorgeous stuff here you probably have never ever seen either. And a lot of these will actually allow you to go in and choose, do you want a 5 mil, a 10 mil, not like you're stuck with just a 15 or 30 mil in the store. So lots of different types of, geraniums and lotuses, blue lotuses, pink lotuses, white lotuses, only bloom like once a year. And these are so aromatic. They're aphrodisiacs. They're so great for hormone balancing, longevity. It's just a total thing. If you love yourself, you got to have these. As you see on the side here, like Howood, maybe you haven't heard some of these. Litsea is in here. Melissa is got to be up there. Palo Santo. Instead of burning all this stuff and burning sticks and, all this sort of stuff, Palo Santo is an amazing essential oil, absolutely right up there with frankincense and myrrh. So these are the kind of things, copaya, stuff like that. If you've got pain, kidney stuff, a lot of these can be taken internally, externally, on here. So take a look at all this stuff. Tansy. Why are people taking, I don't get this. Why are people taking methylene blue when you have things like blue tansy here and Roman chamomile and, blue butterfly pea herbs, right? Even the different things similar to spirulina. You can also get the, different things and components that break down to that. There's so many things you could use instead, but there's a blue tansy. That's what's in Valor. So these are some of the things, like I said, it's just got to be a must-have these days, right? So in here, one of the things, Fancy Oak is in here. How's it saying? I only have a black screen, but I can hear you. Oh no, you guys, we were black screening? That's terrible. That is so ridiculous. Let me go try this again. We are going through this and I'll go through the short version. I'm not happy when that happens. That is just, sorry about that, guys. I didn't see. So, okay. So if you're on here, let's take a look here. There's the Key Aroma Shop, on here. Like I said, I'll just have to backspace. There's things I talked about, the blue tansy. So hopefully I'll check back in a minute or two and see if you can see it. But there's, again, new directions. There is going into the Key Aroma Shop in here, right? So all we have to do, I'll just keep backspacing. No, I guess I won't backspace. We'll go into here. So let's go into my Key Aroma Shop.ca. That was the other one, right? I talked about here. So I want you to take a look. Hopefully you'll be able to see it this time because it looks like it's a sharing again, but who knows? Anyway, I actually had people today get a hold of me and I was like, what do you mean you can't? They said they couldn't even comment, that they're being limited to how many times. I said, I've had that forever. I can only talk to 5 people a day on each one of my channels. That allows me 10 people to have 10 conversations with. But in here, what I wanted to say is if you want, take a look at these. A to Z. If you're up on this side of the border, amazing. Amber essential oil, angelica, aniseeds, all these things in here. Absolutely incredible stuff. Like I said, blood orange is in here, cassia, cedarwood, all these things, artemisia. There's your chamomile. There's your blue chamomile, German blue, by the way. Anything blue is great, Different colors, different strokes for different folks. So in here again, very, very important. And I'm going to go back to my quick little pH. My pH, my alkaline strips. These are the ones, you can either get, and again, 4.5 to usually 9 will get it. You want them to be turning again into that, blue color in here. Okay, it's not rocket science. If you put your urine in, pee it into a cup that you're not going to be drinking out of, and do it 2-3 times a week. A lot of people, like I said, were asking for that, and this is the one, of course, here we go. These are the ones that I was saying that you need to contact directly. So if you cannot take baking soda for whatever reason, this is the company, Suede Hills, that you need to phone. I'm telling you, you have to phone, talk to Cindy, right? Because it's not online. Okay, so those are some of the things in here. So yeah, hopefully like you were able to see some of that. I'll catch up in here. So that was terrible. We had a black screen for a while. Okay, so there was no visuals, can't figure it out. I didn't figure it out till now either. So Jodia says, I have a question regarding listening to frequencies via a cell phone while being Wi-Fi'd and fried. How are the two reconciled? Okay, that's a great question. Okay, so in here, what happens? It's like the lesser of two evils. I can actually take a phone or an iPad, okay? And once you download, and this is probably, and it's a great question because a lot of people just don't know this. Once you actually download one of these apps, for example, I was, and if you guys want, get a hold of me at my Climb Mother 13 or leave your email in here and I will send you one of those links. Because right now I am able to go into the back here into something we call Quantum Caps. And I actually can go into the directory and I can actually give people, if you haven't had it before, 1 7-day thing. So it's basically, it's a remote. And basically you just put your voice and picture in and you send it to me. And we do a session. You can listen to it for 24/7. So anyway, that might be something. So if you want to try a Quantum Cap, I can give one away for free. And if you want, a lot of people get them and then we can, send your frequencies. You can listen to them all week, custom. So what happens though, is when you download any app, and you're probably just not aware of that, once I download any of these apps, let's say the Genius, the Quantum Cap, the BioVibe, whatever I'm doing, is you don't need to go onto the Wi-Fi once you have the software downloaded. Okay, so that's one of it. If you want, and you wanted to get hardwired in, unless you had a Mac computer with an M2 chip, then basically that's how you would do it through the Ethernet. So you could do it that way and use headphones. But in here, again, it won't work on a laptop. And that's what people do. They assume this goes on laptops. They don't. It goes on an iPad, a tablet, or an iPhone. So there's an Android and an Apple version, okay? And the only computer it will work on, like I said, is one of those more expensive Mac computers with an M2 chip. So you've got to have that, otherwise you're not going to be able to download it, right? So again, if you need that or whatever, and if you want to try that, what I can do is I can send it. You'll get a little thing saying, hi, I want to connect to my biofeedback, therapist, which is me, right? So you have to know what my email is, right? And I need to know what your email is in order to send the stuff to you. So those are one of the things here. So if you have a problem, I can put the link in the bottom. And what happens at that link, I am not the office. I don't get paid by the office. I'm not on staff, and I'm not part of their support program. But if you have a problem with that, I'll put it on here, is you can contact directly to them or to support or admin, one of the two, at Insight Health Apps. Okay. Those are the people that are there that are supposed to be helping direct your calls. They are the support system. Okay. So I'm not, computer programming. I do other kinds of things. So anyway, those might be really helpful. So those links are in the back for you. So when you're listening to frequencies of any kind, okay, you can put them in. And now what we're going to do, we're going to add fractals in. So one of the things, let's just take a look here. I'm actually going to put all these solfeggio tones, and that's all you're going to do. We're going to import all the frequencies. I would send all these codes to you, and all you have to do is hit play. It's not rocket science. So if you listen to it, and I'm going to be doing, these are all for the different chakras. And again, the other thing you can do is it's supposed to be done with headphones. Okay, so that again, not earbuds, you don't have to have the bone oscillation conduction, and you certainly don't have to use ear pods, but plug it in. Okay, so I don't have a problem with that. I feel the shifts immediately. My clients, I can do them on Zoom or FaceTime, and they're listening right now. They would be on the other end listening with their headphones, or we might put the headphones around a glass of water for 10 minutes and we make the remedies. But this way, you could have this program for a week. So again, I need to have you send your emails to me because I can't send it. If you've had it before, you're not getting it again. It's only a one-time trial. I can offer that. So bear that in mind. So if you want, it's clanmother. I'm putting in the chat right now, clanmother13@gmail.com. Okay. And that's for the codes for what we call the QuantiCap, right? So if you want to listen to quantumized frequencies, I will send you a capsule off to you. So get a hold of me either on Facebook or at that email. And then, within no time, I just go into the back here and boom, and I'll send those codes off to you. You send your picture and your voice back to me. I will do a session, and then you get to listen to it for a week, right? So we're going to save you like $700, $1,400 worth of time. One of the cool things is that these devices have now come out. So if it's something you really want to have, because a lot of us don't want to go to the doctor. Some of us want to go to the doctors, the MDs. I don't, right? I don't even have a health card. I don't even have a government card. I don't have a Canadian card. I don't have a Visa card. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have anyone's cards. But in here, if it's something that you want, right now, I think it's for $50 US, you can actually, over the next 10 months, own one of these, basically. Okay, so you can basically do every basic thing that I do, which is literally pretty amazing. And when you think about, like I was just amazed when we went to visit, and I'd never been to this naturopath's, right? And I said, well, what are you paying for because he's got a Vega machine. And I said, well, I've got the old Skeel, but I actually have the more advanced stuff because now ours is voice activated and with pictures, right? That's better than sending your, hair and your toenails to me. The old days, people used to send hair, blood, and fingernails or toenail clippings, right? Just to get the DNA lock-in, but not necessary anymore because we've advanced, in the ultrasound department, we've, advanced that way. And that's the whole point of doing voice activation. So anyway, those are very cool. So hopefully that'll be something that you want to look at. So in here, those are some of the processes as well. And, if you have been seeing what's going on and all those fun things that, a lot of people, there's so many, I think, things tearing people apart. This is the sad thing that I see. Like, people don't know if they're coming or going these days, And one of the things I really wanted to, get people in touch with is I did an incredible show with Dr. Dina Churchill and Eagle Eye Man, who on Facebook is known as Timothy Phillips. And he is the one that set up something called Universal Law, Meredith Quinn. And we did this incredible show, actually. And so I'm going to put those up here, but it was called The Sovereign Savages, you guys. And I'm going to put this in here. So I'm going to put the Facebook, and I'm also going to put the YouTube version and a couple of these. This is really important information. I think a lot of people have just, missed the whole thing here. So there's going to be the Facebook one in here that we did. And also, people don't know terminology. They think they've gone to common law, but you know what? A lot of those aren't in the original languages. So unless you know some of the dialects, you think what they're teaching you in these private member associations, and that's a whole nother topic. I was in actually with private member associations with people up in Canada, and they're teaching incorrect law. They are teaching people to bring people into these groups, and they are actually not lawful. Okay, and I think I've been probably blocked from them at the way I did things, but whatever. When people tell me that don't talk about things like, don't talk advanced. These are like beginners. We don't want you to ruffle feathers, right? Because they're trying to get you in and trying to get us in, right? And I went into just a class. I don't care if it's beginner, intermediate, advanced, but when someone tells me I can't ask questions, that doesn't float with my boat, or my ship for sure. So in here, again, you got to be able to ask those questions. And I was really proud of a lot of people too, because, I went with people and they're asking the questions. Like, they don't want to hang around with people now because they're noticing the effects of what's happening and what's transmitting. But in here, there are so many things that people need to bring to the forefront. And, you're in your power when you can say anything. and again, you can say it nicely, you can say it with courteous and kindness. And compassion. People don't need to be jerks about it. I kick people out. The minute I start seeing swearing or someone actually demeaning someone else, I might even not agree with him. I might even agree with him, but I don't like the way they talk to people in my group, and I just remove them. You've been warned right off the bat, to be courteous and to speak with kindness and to speak like an intelligent adult, and I think I've kicked out 100 people. I just don't like the way they talk. And that's not allowed here. If we can't sit around, I look at my Facebook or my groups, we are sitting at a table. You would not come into my home and say that, or say that to someone else that's sitting at the table next to you. And this has become a real problem also with, I find, the younger generations, but also in ours. People are becoming disconnected. And I like to look at people in the eye. Like, they're always shocked when I FaceTime and they go, I'm actually looking at you and you called me. I went, well, it's the next best thing. But I'm going to be listening to you, and I want to have a discussion face to face, right? Because how do you really connect with people? You have to be able to connect on all things so that we have our eyes and our chakras and everything lines up, right? I can see the facial expressions, right? It's so, so important when we, people become disconnected from that. So those are some of the things I just, I really think it would make a huge difference, for people here, is to get into that. So I don't know how many of you people FaceTime people, right? And I don't care. I mean, not going to discuss anything like majorly important on there, but just to have general consensus, I don't have a problem with it. And so one of the things in here, in discussing this, what I was talking about with what I talked with Eagle Eye Man and with Dr. Dina Churchill, and we went in and we were having this wonderful discussion here on basically taking the power and not taking it back, but being empowered. Empower yourself, in here is so, so important to gain, we need to look at the entire thing here, and hopefully you'll be able to see my screen go here in a minute. But one of the things in here, let's take a look at this. Okay. Let's take a look at all the different venues here. I actually, she fixed it because I noticed there was some housekeeping things. Souverain, sauvage, all these are words that you need to know. If you think that you want to be sovereign, that means to be under the reign. Who is the reigning? Who is the head of the, council? And in this case, the queens are also called clan mothers originally. Clans is a word that means children of the creator. Let me say that again. Clans is the lineages, meaning children of creation, the creator, the co-create. Sauvage and Silvictus are old words that mean basically those that belong to nature, forest, and woods. Again, natural, unnatural. Signatory, and it should be signatory versus prisoner of wars. So signatory Indians or signatory savages versus prisoner of wars, i.e. natives, bands, and reserves. So today I got 10 things all of a sudden, boom, this afternoon. And it had to do what was going on with the Micmacs in Nova Scotia and the RCMP, right? You can't come in here. This is treaty band number, whatever. A nation is not a band and reserve. It's a bloodline and a blood type. And it's a mitochondrial DNA. And it's a genetic thing that you can trace, before the flood. My lineage too, AB positive, comes from this lineage, comes from actually down from Noah's Ark, Tartarian lineages, right? We're traceable. We know what our genetics are. Versus someone on a band of reserve that has now a legal corporation set up like the dead corporation of Canada. So you know what? They're prisoner of wars. So if the RCMP come in, because guess what? They're all getting payouts and handouts from the crown and from the corporations, which are de facto, which are insolvent, and basically are bankrupt. And that's a whole nother matter we're going to get into later. So these are actually de facto, does not mean truth. That's why I like a lawyer and an attorney likes to turn you away from the law because they don't know law, right? They do the practice. They do their practice at nursing, their practice at medicine, their practice at law. Anything they can do to practice is basically black magic or witchcraft or whatever you want to call it, sorcery, right? So de facto or factum is a word that means appears as. That's why every lawyer, have you ever been to a thing where they go, it appears, my lord, it is, understood that the fact of the matter, right? It doesn't mean it's the truth. It says appears as, or in some cases, it's temporary until the true people can stand up. So they consider themselves to be private members, because we're looking after the slaves because they can't look after themselves. So we're in the private elite class. Well, sorry, you're still a person, whether you like it or not. It's corpus juris secundum, and you're still dead, right? That's the truth of the matter, right? And so I said, "When do humans foul up?" I went, "It should be foul up or filled up, but whatever." It was a great little talk here, and so those are some of the things too. If you haven't seen my little discussion with that, it was a great discussion. I was really quite happy about that, and we got into talking a little bit more about this. Because people need to know some terminologies. And guess what? English and common law and private little English, flags and this and that, we're not done, till later. So one of the things is my thing is spinning and spinning. I tell you, my computer got fried here on a power surge. Just happened to hit mine. It was the only computer that decided to fry out, in the entire probably valley. But that's okay as we get through that. So one of the things in here, you're on my live right now, which is cool. We're all alive. We are alive at 5. And anyway, so one of the things that we got into here, I have a home. So most people don't know we're creating the live, right? That's us. It's creating our reality. Okay. I also have a home version, right? So in the home is lots of different videos, right? And you go into videos and you'll get a whole list of them. You'll get a page of them. And I mean, I did some amazing stuff with the matriarchs. Musa is the Arabic word for Moses. So you want to talk about scriptures to me, I'll talk about them as I know them to you. Language maps, whole linguistics, definitions, like I said, inhabitants, private, public. That's why I would never draw anything or go into anything that's in the private. My gosh, that's Uniform Commercial Code and personal property. What do you think those words are, PPSA? Your personal property of someone else, right? So anyway, and then I did some really cool stuff with Fiona Gardner. You want to talk about hidden messages in water, in blood, urine, you name it, we did it. And some really cool stuff with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So I've had some really cool discussions, Navy intelligence officers, a few little miracles that we did over the years back in here. But I want you to look at the playlist. So hopefully you guys can see this. It's not going weird. In my playlist, I've just started putting some videos. I'm going to start doing it because I've got on my Facebook probably about 100 and some shows I've done in the last couple of years. Astrotheology, knowing what that is. Healing, I love Marcus Rothkrantz. We're going to talk to you a little bit about things. There's our Frequency Fridays. This will dump into Genius, Insight, Frequency Healings in there, Neurovisor, weird stuff. And then I have a whole section here on, again, sovereign, savage laws. It wasn't called... Actually, it was called the Americus Empire. It wasn't Turtle Island. But in here, if you want to learn about admiralty, fake, de facto, blah, 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 why I'm not a Canadian, okay, all this kind of stuff, matrilineal, Siva's stuff with mending the hoop. These are amazing. Winston Schwartz, get into that, going over the commerce stuff. And then as we go down here, there's a whole bunch of stuff by Lester House, but he did a lot of stuff. I listen to these stuff. You have no idea how I'd make notes. Great thing, 6 parts. Tribal law, the law of the land. A must. It's 10 minutes each, so that's like less than an hour of your time. And then there's mine, which I talk about why are signatory savages above Canada and the U.S., because they don't technically exist, but whatever. It's a paperwork shuffle. And then what Mr. Meredith Quinn actually gave us from the Dakota Empire and from those clan mothers that have been passed down and passed down and passed down. And yes, we do have some things in stone and in copper, and we still have it because I've held it. We still have like obelisks since the pyramids here. Then I want to get into the savage sovereignty, but what I really want to get into is some of these different talks that we had here. And this is one of the most recent ones we had again out in the Micmac territory, out in what you guys call Nova Scotia, hanging on some island, is Dr. Dina Churchill. Quantum therapist, former chiropractor, into natural medicine, and into sovereign savages, and was kind enough to have us on. So there was me, and then we had Eagle Eye Man, and again, you will find him on Facebook as Timothy Phillips, right? So arrived in those Anishinaabe territories. He's been also brought into the local tribes when he came here, but he's got a British accent because he spent a lot of years in England. And there you go. But lived with the tribes and the Bear Clan tribes out in the Rocky Mountains near Jasper. Okay. Spent the time with the old, wise, different headsman, okay, hereditaries. And we're going to get into a whole bunch of stuff as I go in here, talking about what does sauvage mean, giving you the whole linguistics, in here, looking at what are tribal maps. Do I recognize British Columbia? No, I don't. Knowing what Silvictus means, like I said, getting the terminology in here, getting into which one of the, 12 major tribes, 6 different peace laws and stuff like that you belong to. We'll talk about the movies like Avatar to Jupiter Ascending. Oh, it was like a great little talk we had here. This is stuff that, you're going to find relevance to because you've got some background. It's not some ambiguous, stuff. We're talking about the antiquity of the law. And there I'm talking again about sauvage. It means not a person, inhabitant. These are legalese and law definitions. Okay. The Treaty of Guadalupe in Louisiana and how these things are out here and what George Washington and all the Freemasons did to the people. There's a lot of stuff to take in here, but it's simply getting the terminology right. And who are you? Where do you belong? And where are you coming from? I was showing these are the obelisks here. There's your Noah's Ark. There's your AP Bear Clan. Hey, there's a stamp of approval, guys, in those languages. It's in New York. I even know where they're planted. I've read some of these. These are great things from Winston Shrouds. How many people think Canada is the land? Do I really care that a corporation is going down that's a circus? No, that's being a maritime Masonic KKK run corporation. Let it go. Let it go. Okay. Even those flags are Masonic Freemasonry things. Okay. So these are things that, you'll learn a little bit, right? It's not the stuff we were taught in like history books. God knows. So those are some of the different things I want you to take a look at. Oh, you're welcome, Jody. Yeah. Those are great links. You're going to, take a little bit of a deep dive. That's what this is for this week. And like I said, if it's something that you want to go into, whether you want to look at health, you've got a question, about herbs, oils, what's a great substitution? A lot of people are having high blood pressure, having headaches. What's the substitution? Well, you can usually just type like, what's the natural thing? John Canassa is bringing up lots of stuff again, lots of stuff with the ivermectin stuff and a lot of stuff with the quercetin and stuff. Okay. I've known about that forever, but then I know how to read labels. Okay. I don't know why it's a surprise to people that, after being on horse paste and stuff like that, that in 12 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, or a year and a half, people are getting really sick. It's coming back with the vengeance, people. Okay. It's no different than taking some anti-life thing or antibiotic and wondering why you're not feeling well and have a candida and yeast overgrowth in like 6 months too. Right? Action reaction. It's not a side effect. It is the effect. You will have an effect. And a lot of people are on so many medications and so acidic, they don't react to squat anymore. They go, I'm healthy. I said, you can't smell that. You can't do. No, because you know what? They're so shut down. Nothing's working up here. These senses, they're just walking physically, just like the little beetles and the cockroaches. They're walking around. NPCs, call it whatever you want. So there you go. Those are my thoughts for the day. So I'm going to let you guys gather your thoughts for a minute. So I'm going to check the chat room. So if you have any questions, this is, ask your questions now, forever hold your peace. I want you to get into the habit, of, again, getting into place, food and water next little while. Okay. And making sure, like, do you have an extra couple of jerry cans? I've got like 2 extra jerry cans. I can go anywhere in 8 hours, on top of it. So I have at least always and keep topped up. That's 12 hours. If you have a newer vehicle after, probably 2004 or 5, do you have an EMP, either an EMP, right? okay, an electrical magnetic pulse, or a cordial mass ejection. In other words, we're going to get microwaved. If something happens or there's a big enough flux, it can actually shut down your vehicle. So there are things called EMP shields for RVs, for boats, for campers, for trucks, and also for your home that can be done, right? So these are different things. The other thing I've been telling people is getting those wearable air tamers. Like, I am not joking about getting the wearable air tamers, because like, you've got to have something. And actually, I'm going to bring something here. I went and got to. Can you guys see this? Okay. Oops, wrong way. You see it sliding up here? And then what it can do, this is a little different than, those water nebulizers. I think you guys can see here. You see how it's coming up? Yeah, you should be able. It's pink grapefruit and a few other things. Okay, so I want you to see that this is called a diffuser. It's not a nebulizer. This is waterless. And by waterless, what does it mean? It means there's the essential oils going directly into here and out. This will cover 1,000 square foot home in less than half an hour. And I don't really care what you put in. You can see it was full. I had so many in there. This is something I got on Amazon. A lot of these are less than $50 Canadian. And they're amazing. Okay. This is not just how to use the essential oil, but the reason I have the waterless one going here, and there's a couple different styles I saw. There's a, rectangular one. There's this one, but this is waterless. Again, you can even put your essential oil bottle right directly into it, or make a blend like I did, because I want to change the ionization and the chemistry, molecular electrolyte here. I'm not putting in Lysol. I'm not putting in Febreze and crap like that. I'm putting this in because there's stuff that's airborne. Okay. Very, very important. It's airborne. It's nice to have plants. It's nice to have the essential oils, but I'm telling you, holy licking box, it's very, very important, to have that. So, I mean, every couple hours, people wonder why is she always so high? Because I'm going to put all those essential oils on, every couple hours, right? Get it in, you should be able, when you do this, like what I'm doing, a little scalp massage or my little Yoda ear thing, right? You should be able to feel the tingling, just like sparkly, like, when you get that little shiver thing, just by doing that. Okay. It's getting in not only to the biofield, but it's getting into the skin. And these days, I'm telling you, a lot of people, they can't still do that. So you can make some aromatherapy pills. Okay, that's the other thing I do. Have a shot of that. Borax. Oh God, that's the question everyone's bringing up again, right? Borax is not boron either. Okay, it's a chemical thing. So a lot of people take a look at it. They've been putting it in their bathtubs, and a lot of people have been having like success with putting borax in salts and Himalayan salts and Epsom salts and alfalfa, or putting a couple tea bags of alfalfa. They've even been putting clay tea bags and stuff like that. Maybe a couple drops of lavender. So some people have had success with it. I'm going to tell you, what is your boron level? Have you checked? I checked levels for people. Don't just say, go take some iodine or potassium iodine, or go take this and that, because maybe you don't know where that individual's thyroid levels are at. Their TSH, a lot of people are on thyroid medication, right? Just start giving let's just take it. We got radiation and that. So one is I measure the levels. Two, that's why I want people to know their blood type. Some is more iron-based, like mine, an RH positive, mine AB positive. My little Bear Clan one is more iron-based. If you are RH negative, right, it's going to be more copper-based. I actually have a couple friends, right, when we did their blood testing, their blood came out oxidized, and they were literally from the original progenitor RH negative blood types. And they actually had blue blood. It oxidized kind of like in there. So, when people go, everyone bleeds red. No, they don't. Okay. So, I can tell you, no, they don't. Right. I've had that experience. It shocked, I'm sure, a few military nurses as well when they were doing phlebotomy as well. But I have seen that. Not very common. You got to remember, you could have RH null or a golden blood, and there's only like 30 people, and I know 2 of them on the planet that have it. So, right, not everyone's got the same blood there. So, in the borax, I would do the boron level. And like I said, there's clean forms of boron versus multi, in there. So when I know people like John Canas and stuff like that, John joined my group. Did you know it? He's in our group. Okay, so I put his stuff up. You use your discernment. I don't know what kind of, did he use Mule Team or did he really use a clean version? Just like if someone talks to me about baking soda, did you use Arm & Hammer? Or did you use a cleaner version of it? Did you use baking powder? Did you use aluminum-free baking powder? I don't know. Like I said, until you get into those, what they're using. I have clean forms of borax that you can get, actually boxes of it, and they're not Mule Team for $8. So anyway, that is one of the things. So like I said, it's a whole different thing. I'm not in his lab at his home doing his stuff. Okay. So, and again, I would say it depends on people. I will measure their level of boron. I can do that within 2 minutes. You could do that. You can go to Genius Insight Health Apps or get a hold of me. I will give you the link if you haven't had your trial yet. I can tell you within seconds. All I have to do is go to my mineral department. It's like going to the lab. So all I have to do is scoot up into here where it says minerals, and I can look at the magnesium, or I can look at the iron or silica or sodium. And oh my gosh, guess what? There's a boron department. So guess what happens? Is it actually at a normal level? Okay. There's someone's boron right here. It might be a little hard to see, but that's his boron. And so that's the answer, right? You can be deficient in something. You can also be in an overload, like not breaking it down. So I hope that answers your question there, Daria. Lena's got a question before we go. What's your take on caffeine? It flares my histamine intolerance. Herba mate is my go-to once a week instead of coffee. Coffee has a purpose if it's clean. And there's stuff I have. I even have green coffee, essential oil, by the way. So one of the things, oh, you're welcome, by the way. Okay, so on the caffeine. So people always assume, let's say raw cacao. I can't take raw cacao or chocolate because it has caffeine. And I'm like, actually, it really doesn't. It's more like theobromine, but whatever. It's a little different version of it. Again, a lot of people, coffee's not the best thing. It's very acidic. It does cause brain damage. It does a chemistry imbalance. And that's why we use it in colonics. And I don't use it that often. Even in an enema, I'd really be discretionary if I used it even in an enema or colonic. I'd probably want to use a herbal tea first or a chaga tea or something like that. Having said that, what's your histamine level? I mean, I could go back into, okay, well, maybe I need to look at your histamine level, right? Why is the histamine level out? So just like I looked at minerals, guess what? I can go back into another department called neurotransmitters and start seeing. So on this particular individual, maybe hard to see there, but the second thing it is it says histamine, right? So maybe you have a histamine issue, right? Because there's a missing mineral or vitamin or whatever it might be. So there's never a direct energy answer. You can't give a flat answer till you've tested that individual themselves and see what's going on. But in here, herba mate, a lot of people really like that. But, having said that, people with coffee, if it's an acidic problem, what are they going to do? They're going to put baking soda, bicarb in. But like I said, there's a lot of people with renal and bladder stuff. I mean, I just dealt with someone again. They're on fire. Their skin's on fire. Their brain's on fire. They have brain fog. And yet I go into the meridian and say, hey, maybe I need to look at the stomach meridian. Are you that acidic? Like, what's going on with the stomach meridian? Do you have a sore toe? Do you have like the diabetic toe? Why? Because they have fungus there, because they're acidic, right? These little acupuncture points. Or are you having rashes here? Or is something going on? So like I said, a lot of people we're checking right now, and we're looking down on some of the like kidney or bladder, and you're seeing some of these things like 7 out of 77. Like, I mean, that's like basically 1% is flowing at that point. There's some sort of a blockage there. So we want to get people alkaline and open that. And like I said, this is where using biofeedback as a frequency, you can do all the tuning forks you want. You're not going to be able to get into that exact point possibly. Tuning forks are out here, guys. This is like going in. So that's why a weighted 128 is better. But this way I could hook up or not hook up. I could use headphones, or I could use change it into a magnetic current, like a pulse to go through the body. So like I said, it depends on what happens. And a lot of things, rather than coffee, there's barley coffee, there's bamboo coffee you see out right now. You can see actually pineapple ones are very cool. And all the mushroom coffees, lion's mane, turkey tail, shaga, reishi, all those kind of things are acceptable as well, right? And so, but why would it flare your histamine? Because your histamine is basically like when you have an allergy or, you go into kind of a shock, you're having a reaction. But why is that? So I would go back and say, why is it doing it? But, like I said, there are some things in there. And like I said, it's one thing to take a little bit of, coffee once in a while, or how it's watered down, things like that, always makes a difference, right? There's never a solid answer to that. So we have to look at the whole entire spectrum, on this. So I'm going to thank you for joining me. This has been a great Friday. Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to do a couple more here till we get settled. I'm so excited. I ordered my Starlink because you never know what's going to happen. So with the move, just in case I need to put it on the camper, on the truck. And oh my gosh. And I want to thank you, by the way. Last week I did quite get what they were trying to talk about. So yeah, someone's talking about donations. Get a hold of me if that's something you want to do. And I had a whole people, like some people sign up to my Substack. I went, I don't do Stripe and stuff. I'm really kind of off the grid. So if people want to be kind, or they want to have sessions, or you want to do some barter or gifting or whatever like that, get a hold of me directly, right? I mean, I felt kind of bad. I had to tell these people, cancel whatever you've done, because, I'm not taking donations for that methodology. So, there's always things. People have got me gift cards. And, when the girl said, Karen, you've been teaching for years and you've never charged us. So anyway, so if that's something you want to do some gifting, let me know. And set up with the appointment, definitely in there. So we'll find out something that works in there. Are you still in Canada? I've never been in Canada. I'm not a Canadian. But as people think, on my mother's land, right? Someone drew a map calling it Canada up here. Someone drew a map up here calling it British Columbia. I don't know. They're confused. When you see that video I did, I show you what the real Sinaiac area is in here. I always work differently, but I'm some people would say they are. I'm not. But I don't know if that answers your question. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people too. I mean, they've sent me some, when I know who it is, right, I'll tell you where the post office, general post office is, and we can do all sorts of stuff too. I've appreciated people doing things over the years. So you're laughing. I know. It's always well, what's your name? What's this? I said, well, or what's your birthday? I said, are you where I don't have? But my mother would say, or someone would say, right? You've got to find common language. If you, keep going, you don't do this, I don't do that, you're saying it wrong, all you're creating is animosity. There's a way to answer and get around the issue without cutting my throat off and putting it in the guillotine right on there, but making it, so that people know. And a lot of people have no idea where I'm talking about it is. So if you're down on the other side of the fictitious border that doesn't exist either, but I would say, this area is probably about 4 or 5 hours directly what is Spokane, right? Or to, Coeur d'Alene or wherever it might be, And I know people have a, bit of a jurisdictional, or also, I'll just say, their mapping skills, right? Because a lot of people literally just don't know geography, right? And it sounds weird, but I do, I'm more all over the place. I'm dealing with, the clan mother Miko, who's known as Chief Miko down there, right? Over the Choctaws, right? People, where is the Choctaw? I don't know. But where basically the jurisdiction of, that fake thing called Louisiana, Texas is. It's having all sorts of weird shit down there these days, right? Unbelievable. So as I said, keep your stuff here, food, water, fuel, in case something happens, have a backup. I have my little propane, camping stove and stuff like that. It sits out here anyway. I'm living out of boxes for the next 2 weeks. Why not? But isn't that cute? See, as I was doing my biofeedback on myself, right? I was doing my own kidney as I was showing you. It says excellent. Apparently it's clearing my bladder meridian. So, if nothing else, I always think of this as kind of like a mood ring, right? You want to have really vibrant colors, right? And you never know. Someone might come in here, or, you might touch something, or there's a chemical, or you got, how common food poisoning is? Absolutely ridiculous. Oh, Robert, comment ça va? I have to tell you, I have a story about you. my favorite Taoism. You got to love that. Look at when you get pink down the purple down here. No, I didn't get the U.S. passport. I didn't get the 51st state passport, and I didn't get the, 11th one either. So I don't think so. I'm waiting for the tunnel system. I've got that. I think I got a ship on call. But no, speaking of that, so I'm going to put it as shout out because Robert, in other words, Robert Bowers is in the house. He's in the audience here. And it's Robert Bauer now, by the way. So if you've seen his, I've really got to give you a shout out because I just love that. I have a story for you, but I sent a video of our conversations. I got to find that. But I sent where I'm moving to our conversation because he was out in Thailand with Montauk Chia and in Manila. So I said, I've had his books forever, right? So we started talking about Taoism, right? And then which led me to you. And so I think I got to stay in this place and I got my next sacred kin domain because he says, that was an incredible conversation. He says, that Robert Bauer is just amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, he is, Anyway, but yeah, if you haven't seen everything in here, the music, the meditations, the voice artistry, the podcast he's got, his syntax, he's even got merch. I don't have merch, but you've got merch. So anyway, one of the things in here, I go to sleep with him, but his music, okay, somewhere down there on there. But, really take a look at it. One of the things that, I appreciate is that basically we're looking at what you call consciousness technology, right? And there, I'm going to put your face up whether you like it or not. Anyway, these are amazing. Books, meditation, the music is to live for. These are people that were doing solfeggio tones and frequency and medicine and consciousness technology before people really knew what psionics and stuff was. So if you just pop into there's a whole different things of what's coming in, a whole revolutionary of, quantum creators and stuff. But if you look in there and look under the podcast and you go to his conversations with Robert Bauer and his YouTube and Rumble, you're going to find about 2.5 years ago that we did a whole entire talk on this, just exploring thoughts and feelings and ideas and visionary type of conversations, right? Everything from the arts and the science to almost everything, we got into the esoteric and everything in here. So this Informatica series are really great. So if people are looking for stuff, like you want to get with the way, the path and the vibe and the who and the how, some of the people he's interviewed are absolutely amazing. Like, people with future forecasting and Jeff, Harmon and all sorts of people, really like the theologies and the mind treks and the meditation, your voice. He's got one of the most incredible voices in there. The creator gave him the gift of the voice, and that's definitely in here. But the sound and the music in here, and I seriously, this is what chills me out in a lot of times in the evening, and I go to sleep with that. So I'm going to put his YouTube and all those and those sites into the chat room for you guys on that. So anyway, we are doing that. So there's a nice little healing touch for you. Thank you, 8896. So you guys have a wonderful evening. And if I've got anything, my gift this evening is I'm going to go track down that Robert. I know where you are. Let's Riverside. Okay. So anyway, do take a look at that. It's absolutely amazing conversations. We need to have the expansive, not contractive stuff, but we need to be expansive. And when I'm talking about, if you want to expand your mind, expand your frequencies, get into alkalinity, use those essential oils, how high can I get? As high as this can allow me to get, right? And then, like I said, if I wanted to give myself the frequency of this, peace and calming, or the frequency of joy, or the frequency of essential oils, maybe I think we're going to do that. I'm going to give us the frequency of a whole bunch of blends of essential oils, because, we don't often have something like that. So being an aromatherapist and a little alchemist that I am, I'm going to stick in a whole bunch of essential. And today we're going to do energetic frequency alchemy. My alchemy of love, because I'm going to put in all those different blends, not just singles. We're going to put on every blend. So let's say I wanted to look at the blends. So I'm going to hope and immune power and joy and awaken and journey on evergreen essences and sacred mountain. Sacred mountain is a throat thyroid fifth dimensional thing. Inspiration, all these things. I'm going to stick all these essential oils actually into here, and you and I are, that's how we're going to end up with the evening. Because, you know, having the essential oils by frequency, you can never have enough stuff like that. Sacred angel, right? Forgiveness, inner child, all those things are so, so important that, you know, most people just totally forget that there's transformation to be had. So that's what we're going to leave you with today. We're going to do all these essential oils. I'm doing all the essential oils for us. So let's just take a nice moment and just go still. And hopefully you'll start feeling that tingling in the biofield. And I just love when I do this. It goes out to everyone that's listening. It's going to listen. As we raise your vibration, you're going to raise everyone's around you. I just love it. It's like angel-like dust of essential oils. Homeopathics in one thing. This is a whole different level. This is biofield bliss. I think I should make an oil called that, biofield bliss. Okay, so, you know, let's look at some of this stuff. This is amazing. Now let's close the evening. Tell me how you feel. What is this doing to you? What is the frequencies of the biofield blissful oils doing to all of us? Just put a word or two in the chat. Oh, I can just feel it moving down my knees and everywhere. I just love that. Do you know, after a while, if you do this for about 5-10 minutes, do you know, listening to it with headphones, you might be able to actually smell those essential oils. I still love doing that. The mind is so powerful. This energy will create those sounds again. So there we go. We're going to have the oils. We're going to be blissful. We're going to have fun. And we're going to have a lovely evening. And I will join with, you know, I'm thinking I might want to do a Sunday. So check around supper time Sunday. If I'm not doing Sylviva's class, right, with Selena from Sabrina Wallace's group, right? So if they're not doing something, which is usually my, I think 5, I might do this at 6. So check in Sunday evening here. Mary's she's seeing sparkles of light and colored light. Exactly. Oh, this is so cool. I just love this. This is some new stuff I invented. So I wanted to see if some of you could feel the shift, but you're not seeing it as well. I love you, clairvoyance. It's just amazing. Anyway, bon nuit, sasibo, all that. Thank you, gracias, arrivederci, and all that. And we will see you later.